Picture this. You roll out of bed on a freezing winter morning. You walk barefoot across your bedroom carpet. Totally fine, right? But the second you step into the kitchen, bam! Your bare foot hits that tile floor and you physically gasp. It literally feels like you just stepped on a solid block of ice.
So why does that actually happen? Why on earth does the tile feel so much colder than the carpet? This isn't just some quirky, everyday annoyance. It's actually a massive clue. It's a real-life mystery that perfectly unlocks one of the most fundamental principles in all of physics. Because here's the crazy part. Assuming your thermostat has been set to the exact same number all night, both that carpet and that tile floor are sitting at the exact same temperature. Let's say 20 degrees Celsius. They are in perfect thermal equilibrium with the room. So, if they are exactly the same temperature, why does your brain scream that the tile is freezing while the carpet feels totally fine?
Well, by the end of this explainer, we're going to completely solve this cold floor mystery. We'll look at how heat actually moves, build out the heat conduction formula, and then run through some really cool real-world examples like an icebox and an aluminum pan before wrapping up with a quick summary.
All right, part 1, the cold floor mystery. Let's solve this right now.
The big secret here? It's all about the rate of heat transfer. It has nothing to do with the absolute temperature. See, when your 37 degrees Celsius foot touches that 20-degree floor, heat instantly flows out of your body and into the floor. But tile is a fantastic heat conductor. It literally sucks thermal energy out of your skin at a blindingly fast rate. The carpet, it's a thermal insulator. It pulls heat away from you, but very, very slowly. You see, your nervous system actually kind of stinks at feeling absolute temperature. What you actually feel is the rapid loss of heat. The faster that heat drains away, the colder you feel.
So, Section 2, how heat actually moves. Now that we know it's all about speed, let's zoom in on the microscopic level to see how this heat actually travels through a solid object. Think of thermal conduction like a giant microscopic game of bumper cars. Picture the molecules in a hot object. They are vibrating like crazy. They're packed with high kinetic energy. Now, picture the cold object. Those molecules are sluggish, just kind of barely moving. When you press that hot object right up against the cold one, those fast molecules violently crash into the slow molecules right at the boundary. Bam! Energy is transferred. Then, those newly energized molecules bump into the ones right behind them, and so on. The cumulative effect of billions of these tiny microscopic collisions, that's what we call a net flux of heat flowing from the hot body to the cold body.
Now wait, this is absolutely crucial. Take a look at this quote straight from our source material. Therefore, you will get a more severe burn from boiling water than from hot tap water. Okay, but why? It's because the rate of that heat flux, just how violently those molecular bumper cars crash into each other, depends massively on the temperature difference between the two objects. Boiling water at 100 degrees Celsius has a huge temperature difference compared to your normal skin temp, so it drives heat into your hand way faster than, say, 50-degree tap water ever could.
Moving right along to Section 3, the heat conduction formula. We've got the concept down, so let's translate this into the actual math. And don't worry, we're going to build this step by step.
To calculate exactly how much heat is moving, we really only need to track 4 variables. First up is cross-sectional area, or A. Think about it. If you slap a cold wall with your entire palm, your hand cools down way faster than if you just poke it with one fingertip, right? More area simply equals more collisions. Second is thickness, or D. A thick winter coat keeps you warmer than a thin t-shirt because that heat literally has to travel further to escape. Third is the temperature difference, T2 minus T1, which we literally just talked about. And finally, we have K, the thermal conductivity. This is just a special number assigned to specific materials that tells us how easily they let heat pass through.
So put all 4 of those variables together and boom, we get the master equation for the rate of conductive heat transfer, Q over T. Q is your heat energy in joules, and T is time in seconds. So that left side is literally just joules per second, also known as watts. And how do we find it? We just multiply our material's conductivity K by the area A by the temperature difference T2 minus T1, and then we divide that whole chunk by the thickness D. That's the whole shebang. And it makes total logical sense, right? Bigger area and a bigger temperature difference go on top because they speed things up. Thickness goes on the bottom because it slows things down.
Now, let's compare those K values across different materials, because this is really where the magic happens. Look at silver. It has a K value of 420,
Aluminum is sitting at 220. These metals are packed with free-roaming electrons, which makes them phenomenal heat conductors. But contrast that with other stuff on this list. Water is only 0.6, air is a tiny 0.023, and styrofoam just 0.010. These materials are absolutely terrible at passing heat along, which makes them top-tier insulators. Now, you might be wondering, if air is such a bad conductor, why do we stuff our winter jackets with fluffy down feathers? Well, it's precisely because they trap billions of tiny stagnant pockets of air. We're actually using air's terrible conductivity to our advantage.
And before we dive into some math, here's a super quick real-world connection. If you've ever watched a home renovation show, you've probably heard them talk about the R value or R factor of wall insulation. The R factor is quite literally just the ratio of thickness to conductivity. Builders want super thick walls, a big D, filled with a material that has a super tiny K, so a larger R value literally just translates to better insulation.
Okay, Section 4. Example, the icebox. Let's make this super concrete by putting our formula to the test with an excellent insulator.
Imagine you're heading out camping. You've got this classic styrofoam cooler. The walls are exactly 2.50 centimeters thick, and inside it's packed to the brim with ice at perfectly 0 degrees Celsius. But you accidentally leave it locked in the trunk of your car on a scorching summer day, where the air is a baking 35 degrees Celsius. If you leave it trapped in there for a full 24-hour day, how much of that ice is actually going to melt?
Well, the answer is only about 3.44 kilograms. That is roughly the equivalent of a standard 7-pound bag of ice you'd grab at a gas station. Over an entire 24-hour period, locked in a blazing hot car trunk, that is the only ice that melts. Crazy, right?
So how is that even possible? Well, if we plug our numbers into that Q over T formula we just learned, we find that the rate of heat transfer is only 13.3 joules per second. Think about that. Even though the temperature difference between the trunk and the ice is huge, and the cooler itself has nearly a square meter of surface area, that unbelievably tiny K value of 0.010 acts like a massive bottleneck. The styrofoam literally acts as a shield, only allowing a tiny trickle of heat energy to pass through its walls.
All right, moving to Section 5. Example, the aluminum pan. Let's completely flip the script here and look at a highly efficient heat conductor.
Picture this, you're boiling water on an electric stove. That heating element is glowing red hot, and it's pumping a massive 2,256 joules of energy per second directly into the pan. Now this pan is made of solid aluminum, and the bottom is 0.8 centimeters thick. Inside the pan, your boiling water is sitting right at 100 degrees Celsius. Based on our formula, what is the actual temperature on the absolute bottom of the pan, the side that is physically touching that glowing red stove?
Get this, the temperature difference from the top of that metal down to the bottom is a mere 5.33 degrees Celsius, which means the absolute bottom of that pan is only sitting at about 105 degrees. Wait, let that sink in for a second. The stove burner is literally red hot, but the metal physically touching it is barely above the boiling point of water.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of high conductivity. Because aluminum's K value is an enormous 220, it is ridiculously efficient at dumping heat. It absolutely does not need a massive temperature buildup to move those 2,200 watts of power. The boiling water on top is constantly cooling the aluminum, and the metal just channels that heat from the stove straight through to the water with almost zero resistance. It's an incredible thermal highway.
Okay, Section 6, Summary and Final Thoughts. Let's wrap this all up. Here are the main things you absolutely need to walk away with today. First, thermal conduction physically happens through the microscopic collisions of molecules, our little bumper cars. Second, the rate of that heat transfer depends on 4 key variables: the area, the thickness, the temperature difference, and the specific material's thermal conductivity, which we call K. And finally, a high K means you've got a fantastic conductor like metal or tile, and a low K means you have a great insulator like air, styrofoam, or that cozy living room carpet. But I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Conduction requires direct physical contact. And quite frankly, over large macroscopic distances, it is way too slow. If the Earth relied purely on conduction through the atmosphere, we'd be roasting during the day and freezing at night. If your car engine relied purely on the solid metal conducting heat, the whole thing would just melt into a puddle. So how do these massive systems efficiently dump all that excess heat? Well, for that, we're going to need an entirely different method of heat transfer. That method is called convection, and they'll definitely want to join me in our next